Today we're going to talk about products and factors. All right, this video is mostly about vocabulary. You really need to be able to use these words very well, very fluently. Okay, products and factors. All right, so first here's our definitions. And if you need to, please pause the video so that you can write down these definitions. All right, so these two words that we're going to start with, product and factor, they're both nouns. A product, here's what the definition is. Product is the result obtained by multiplying two or more numbers or expressions together. Right? That's what a product is. You should be pretty familiar with that word. Factor, right? What's that word? It's one of two or more numbers or expressions that multiply to produce a given product. Right? So these words you should be pretty familiar with. Right? So if I had, a simple multiplication problem like 3 times 5, right? Answer is 15, right? But let's make sure we understand our vocabulary, right? So this number here, 15, the result, this is what we call our product, right? The answer, basically, to our multiplication problem. That's called the product. And what are these numbers called? These two numbers, the 3 and the 5, those are called factors, right? So the numbers here that multiply together to get the answer, these are called the factors, right? These are the factors, your answer is your product, right? And it doesn't just have to be two numbers, right? It could be as many numbers as you want, right? If I had something like this, 2 times 3 times 5, right? If you multiply that together, 2 times 3 is 6 times 5, that's 30, right? So once again, right, the answer here, that's your product, and then all of these numbers, these are the numbers that multiply to get 30. These are called your factors. Okay? You need to know those terms. Right? This can be done with just plain old numbers, or it can be done with expressions. Right? So if I had 3x multiplied times x plus 5. Okay? In other words, if I want to multiply this factor of 3x by this factor of x plus 5, right, what would be the product? Right? Just use distributive property, and we would get 3x squared plus 15x. Okay? And again, the math here is not hard, but I really want to emphasize the vocabulary, right? So this part here, this answer, that is the product. Okay? And this and this, these are what we call the factors. Okay, the factors are the numbers or expressions that we use to multiply to get the answer, and the answer is called the product. Okay, all right, I'd like you to find the product of 2x, x minus 1, and x plus 3. All right, think about that, what that word means, and find the product of those three expressions. All right, go ahead and pause and do that, please. All right, so this should not have been too difficult, right? We're basically going to find the product of these three factors, right? So I'm just going to multiply 2x times x minus 1 times x plus 3, right? And in multiplying this, it really doesn't matter which two factors you multiply first. I'm going to go ahead and multiply the first two factors together. 2x times x minus 1, that will give me 2x squared minus 2x. And then I would still need to multiply that by x plus 3 to get the final product. Okay, and then here we can multiply these two binomials together. So I'm going to distribute 2x squared times x, and then times x or times 3. So then we get 2x cubed plus 6x squared. And now let's distribute the negative 2x times this x plus 3. Right, that gives me negative 2x squared minus 6x. Okay, and we can simplify that to become 2x cubed plus 4x squared minus 6x. Okay, all right, that and again, this answer here, what is that? That is our product. Okay, and that is the product of these three factors. Okay, these are our factors, right? And I just want to mention, if you had done 2x times x minus 1 times x plus 3, if you had done that in a different order, you would still get the same thing, right? So I'll do this real fast. If I multiply this one this x minus 1 times this x plus 3 first, and let's leave the 2x alone. We would get x squared plus 3x minus 3, right? Which simplifies to become x squared plus 2x minus 3, right? And then if I multiply the 2x, distribute that, I would get 2x cubed plus 4x squared minus 6x, right? So really quickly, just want to demonstrate, you still get the same product at the end, right? Because we have the same three factors that multiply together. All right, so now we're going to talk about the word factor again, but this time we're going to talk about the verb form. All right, here's what factor means as a verb. And again, if you need a pause here to write down this definition, please do. All right, so factor as a verb. It means to express a number or expression as a product of two or more numbers or expressions. Right, and kind of a way of thinking about this is it's kind of like it's going backwards from multiplication. Right, so let me give you an example. Right, so if I had the number 14 and I wanted to factor it, all I'm doing is I'm going to express 14 as a product of two numbers, or as a multiplication problem, in other words. So to factor 14, I would just do this. I would write, well, 14 is the same thing as 2 times 7. Right? That's all it is. To factor something, the verb to factor just means to rewrite it basically as a multiplication problem. Really easy. Right? So if I had, another one, 33. Easy, right? So if I were to factor that, that just means to rewrite that as a product of two or more expressions, right? 3 times 11. Right? And again, to use our vocabulary, right? So we're basically, this time we're starting with the product. This is the product. And then we're ending up with an expression that has two or more factors, right? When you factor something, you're basically rewriting it as a product of two or more factors, right? Using the noun form there, right? And you can do this with an expression as well, right? It's a simple one. If I had the expression 6x minus 15, right? I could factor that, right? I could say that 6x minus 15 is the same thing as 3 times 2x minus 5, right? And if you don't believe me, you can always multiply this out, right? What's 3 times 2x? Well, that's 6x. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. Okay, so pretty simple. Just remember, factor, the verb form, means to change something or express it as a product of two or more numbers or expressions. Basically, we're rewriting it as a multiplication problem. All right, go ahead, and I would like you to pause here and factor each one of these. So please pause and do that. All right, so if you were to factor 10, right, you could factor it as 2 times 5. To factor 49, you'd factor that as 7 times 7. Right? Here's the answers for this. If we were to factor 4x minus 10, we could factor that as 2 times the quantity 2x minus 5. Right? And why does that work? Because if we distribute 2 times 2x, we get 4x. 2 times negative 5 gets me negative 10. And if we were to factor 3x plus 21, that could be factored as 3 times the quantity x plus 7. Okay? Easy, right? Lastly, I want you to do this challenge here. Find all the ways to factor the number 12. Right? Figure out all the different ways that you could factor the number 12. I'll give you the first one. One way to factor 12 would be 1 times 12. Right? You figure out the other ways. Go ahead and pause and do that. All right, here are the other ways to factor. You could factor it as 1 times 12. You could do 2 times 6. And you could also do 3 times 4. Right? And of course, if you really wanted to, you could write these backwards too. We could say that's 12 times 1, or 6 times 2, or 4 times 3. Right? Did you get all those? Those are a bunch of different ways to factor the number 12. But actually, don't forget there's still one other one. What's the other way to factor the number 12? Well, I could write 12 as 2 times 2 times 3. Right? Does that make sense? 2 times 2 is 4, times 3 is 12, right? And of course you could change the order on these any way you want, right? But that would be another way to factor the number 12, right? To rewrite it as a multiplication problem. Okay, one last question. Make sure you really know this vocabulary. Now that we've factored 12, let's use that factor word as a noun now. Can you please list all the whole number factors of 12? Pause and do that. All right, and basically, this is just a list of all the numbers we've used above. Right? What are all the whole number factors of 12? Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. Right? These are all the whole number factors of 12 because these are all numbers that you could use to multiply to get 12, to get that product of 12. Okay? All right, this video should have been pretty simple, but again, you really need to know those words well. Right? What a product is, what a factor is, and what it means to factor something. See you in class.